Welcome to A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students, Lesson 86. These ideas are for review today from Lesson 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. I have seen it in many people and in many things, but when I reached for it, it was not there. I was mistaken about where it is. I was mistaken about what it is. I'm going to pause and say, as I read this, I just have a lot of compassion for myself and for all of us at all the times we were mistaken and thinking, this is it. This is what's going to make me happy. But if it was out there, it was fickle and fleeting, and it didn't make us happy. Temporarily. And then the law of diminishing returns set in, or the person said something we didn't like, or our dream job ended up being a nightmare because we didn't like our boss. The examples could go on and on. Salvation doesn't lie out there. And thank goodness. Because then you would be at the mercy of it. I was mistaken about where it is. I was mistaken about what it is. I will undertake no more idle seeking. Only in God's plan for salvation will work, and I will rejoice because his plan can never fail. These are some suggested forms for applying this idea specifically. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. Let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. Wow. If we really applied this to everything we encountered in a single day, that alone would change your life forever. Because it would tear a hole in the veil of illusion. And it would let so much light in that you couldn't deny anymore that it's true. Now, maybe our ego would still have a hold and some habitual patterns that needed to be overcome, but you could never again deny that this is true. From Lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Yet only his plan will work. By holding grievances, I am therefore excluding my own hope of salvation from my awareness. I would no longer defeat my own best interests in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. Specific applications for this idea might be in these forms. I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I will not see the grounds for my salvation. This calls for salvation, not attack. These statements are so powerful, and they shrink the ego's power so much that I understand why there's this knee-jerk reaction when we are lost or trapped in ego, especially in those moments where there is discord and we tend to habitually go straight to that fear state of like fight or flight. This is bad. I have to fix it. They're bad. I have to attack them. They're attacking me. I'm justified in defending myself and thereby attacking. But this calls for salvation, not attack. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I will not see the grounds for my salvation. Ego wants us to stay lost in that nightmare. Because the moment we realize that the nightmare isn't real, the ego loses its home. Because we refuse to live in the nightmare with it anymore. The nightmare of false perception. So please, beautiful, shining one, don't hesitate to pull back the curtains and let the sunlight in today. This calls for salvation, not attack. And don't let your ego talk you into anything. And it will have no power over you. I know that feels easier said than done, but I promise that as you apply these principles, as you train yourself to turn to these truths instead of to ego's lies, it becomes easier and easier, and the day will come that this will be your habitual response. Peace. Letting go of grievances. Not allowing any turmoil out there to create turmoil in here. I promise you this. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow for lesson 87.